Maya owns a high-end specialized cleaning and organization firm for ultra-high net worth clients. She is intelligent, technically savvy, but often invisible to her employers. Have you ever felt invisible? Not the superpower kind of invisible. I mean the kind where you are standing right in front of someone, looking them in the eye, and you just know they don't see a human being. They see a function, a utility. They see a mop, a rag, a uniform. For 10 years, that was my life. I built a business around being invisible. Maya's Pristine Solutions. We didn't just clean houses. We managed the chaotic physical lives of the ultra-wealthy. We reorganized 5,000 bottle wine cellars. We cataloged couture wardrobes. We sanitized server rooms in penthouses. We were discreet. We were perfect. And we were ghosts. I told myself it was okay. The money was incredible. It paid for my mom's care facility. It bought my quiet little house in the suburbs. I traded my identity for security until Marcus Thorne. And the day he decided that my name wasn't Maya, it was just the cleaning lady. He didn't know that the cleaning lady had a master's in library science and a certification in high-security digital asset management. He didn't know that to clean his life, I had to understand how his life worked. And he certainly didn't know that when you treat the person who holds the keys to your kingdom like trash, sometimes they decide to lock the doors. Let me go back a bit. You need to understand the scale of this man's arrogance to understand why I did what I did. Marcus Thorne was a tech venture capitalist, the kind of man who gets written up in Forbes not just for his money, but for his ruthless efficiency. He was 40, good-looking in a sharp, predatory way, and treated the world as if it were his personal chessboard. I had been working on his various properties for 2 years. Penthouse in the city, Hamptons Estate, the ski lodge in Aspen. My team and I were the premier service for people like him because we handled the impossible stuff. We didn't just dust. We restored antique mahogany. We didn't just organize papers. We created digitized, searchable archives of their physical documents. I was proud of my work. It required precision, intelligence, and an obsessive attention to detail. Then came the yacht, the apex predator. That's what he actually named it. A 180-foot monstrosity of chrome, glass, and minimalist ego docked in Miami. He was preparing to host the most important meeting of his career on board, a merger that would turn his billions into tens of billions. He needed it spotless. Not just clean, he needed it sterilized. He wanted the vibe of a futuristic operating room where he could dissect his competition. He called me personally, which was rare. "Maya," he said on the phone, his voice clipped, always in a rush. "The Apex is a mess. The previous crew were idiots. I need you down in Miami for 3 days prior to the merger meeting. I want you to oversee everything personally. You have full clearance. Fix it." Full clearance meant I had access to everything. The physical keys, the digital key cards, and the integrated smart system that ran the entire vessel. On a modern super yacht, everything is connected. The climate control, the engine diagnostics, the security cameras, and the localized server where the owner keeps their private data while at sea. I flew down. I brought my 2 best specialists. We worked 18-hour days. The yacht was magnificent, I'll admit, but it was cold. It felt less like a boat and more like a floating data center. Marcus had installed a state-of-the-art biometric security system for his master suite and his onboard office. My job was to ensure that system was physically pristine. No smudges on the retinal scanners, no dust in the server racks that hummed beneath the deck. I had to coordinate with his IT director, a nervous guy named Steve, to ensure my cleaning protocols didn't trip any digital alarms. Because I was the lead vendor, Steve gave me an admin-level vendor pass on the yacht's intranet. It was supposed to be temporary, just to let me log maintenance activities. But Steve was sloppy. He was terrified of Marcus, overworked, and he cut corners. When he set up my profile, he didn't restrict my permissions correctly. He essentially made me a secondary system administrator, so he wouldn't have to keep approving my access requests every hour. I noticed it immediately. I saw the directory structure. I saw the controls for the hydraulic gangway. I saw the digitized locking mechanisms for the watertight doors. Being a professional, I didn't touch anything I wasn't supposed to. I just filed the information away. A good organizer always knows where everything is. The day before the big meeting, Marcus arrived. He was a whirlwind of stress and demands. He didn't say hello to me. He just walked past where I was polishing a brass railing and barked orders into his headset. He was accompanied by 2 other men, the CEOs of the company he was trying to acquire. This was the pre-meeting schmooze. They were touring the boat, drinking 20-year-old scotch, measuring each other up. I was in the main salon, the massive living area with floor-to-ceiling windows. I was on my knees, delicately removing a microscopic scuff mark from the white Italian leather sofa they were about to sit on. I was wearing my company uniform, a charcoal gray polo and black trousers. Functional, neat. Marcus led the men into the room. He was in full performance mode, charming, dominant. And this, Marcus swept his hand around the room, is where we'll finalize the deal tomorrow. Total privacy, total security. The apex is impenetrable. One of the CEOs, an older, oily man, laughed. "It's sterile, Marcus. Don't you ever relax? It looks like nobody lives here." And then it happened. Marcus laughed, a dismissive, sharp sound. He looked down. Not at me. Through me. At the spot on the floor I occupied. "Oh, don't worry about the sterility, Bill," Marcus said, swirling his scotch. "I have people for that. The cleaning lady is just finishing up the grunt work. She'll be gone before the real business starts." The cleaning lady. Not Maya. Not the specialist I flew in from New York. Not even my head of housekeeping. Just the cleaning lady. Grunt work. It wasn't the words themselves. It was the tone. It was the absolute reduction of my entire existence, my expertise, my 15 years of building a business, into a faceless, mindless utility. I was a Roomba in a polo shirt to him. I froze. The microfiber cloth stopped moving on the leather. I looked up. Just for a second. I caught his eye. There was nothing there. No recognition that he'd insulted me. Because to insult someone, you have to believe they have feelings capable of being hurt. He didn't believe that of me. He turned away and continued talking about stock options. I stood up. I picked up my caddy. I walked out of the salon, past the security guards, down into the crew mess hall below decks. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped my supplies. I sat on a bench in the empty crew area and stared at a porthole. My mother worked as a hotel maid for 30 years to put me through college. I remembered her coming home with swollen ankles, smelling of industrial chemicals, talking about how guests would leave towels on the floor right in front of her while she was working. I remembered promising myself I would never be treated like that. I built my company to command respect. We charged premium prices to force them to see value in what we did. But men like Marcus Thorne don't see value in service. They only see power. He wanted the yacht sterile? Fine. I would give him sterile. I took out my tablet, the one I used for inventory management, the one that was currently logged into the apex predator's central nervous system with admin-level vendor access thanks to Sloppy Steve. The big meeting was scheduled for 10 a.m. the next morning. The plan was for Marcus and the two CEOs to meet in the onboard office, the war room, where the air-gapped server held the sensitive merger data. I was scheduled to be off the boat by 8 a.m. At 7 a.m., I did my final walkthrough. The boat was flawless. It gleamed. I sent my 2 staff members ahead to the airport. I have one last administrative thing to check, I told them. I went down to the server room level. It was cool and humming with fans. I pulled up my tablet. I wasn't going to break anything. That would be vandalism. I was a cleaner. I was just going to tidy up his digital environment. Step 1. The physical access. The yacht had an automated security protocol called Port Lockdown. It was designed for emergencies, like a piracy attempt while docked. It sealed the hydraulic gangway, the only way on or off the boat, and mag-locked all exterior doors. I located the protocol in the system. I set a timer. 10:15 a.m., 15 minutes after their meeting was supposed to start. Step 2. The digital assets. Marcus was obsessed with security. His onboard war room had a panic feature. If triggered, steel shutters closed over the windows, and the door deadbolted with steel pins that could only be retracted from the outside bridge console. I accessed the scheduling software for the room. I set the panic protocol to engage at 10:15 a.m. sharp. And finally, the pièce de résistance, the data. The server held the presentation, the financials, the leverage he needed for this deal. He accessed it via biometric scan in the war room. I used my admin access to go into the user profiles. I didn't delete them. I just cleaned them. I went into Marcus's biometric profile, the retinal scan data that unlocked his digital life. I corrupted the file by 2%, just enough that the scanner wouldn't recognize him, but would think it was a system error rather than sabotage. I finished my work. I walked up the gangway onto the Miami dock at 7:55 a.m. Marcus was just pulling up in his limousine. He stepped out, looking like $1 billion in a custom suit. He didn't see me standing by my rental car. He walked right past the cleaning lady and onto his kingdom. I drove to a coffee shop across the marina, one with a perfect view of the apex predator. I ordered a black coffee. And I waited. 10 a.m. arrived. I watched through the cafe window. I could see movement through the massive windows of the yacht's office before the blinds automatically lowered for the meeting. I imagined the scene inside. The handshakes, the scotch being poured. Marcus taking control of the room, walking to the massive screen, preparing to dazzle them with his presentation. 10:15 a.m. On my tablet, which still had a passive connection to the yacht's status indicators, 3 little green lights turned red. Gangway, retracted, locked. Exterior seal, active. War room, protocol, engaged. From my vantage point, I saw the sleek hydraulic ramp leading to the dock suddenly hiss and pull away, sealing flush against the hull of the yacht. The apex predator was now an island. Inside that war room, I knew exactly what happened. The steel shutters slammed down over the windows, plunging them into artificial light. The heavy thunk-thunk of steel bolts sealing the door would have echoed in the sudden silence. They were trapped. But that wasn't the worst part for Marcus. I watched the time. 10:17 a.m. by now. He would have tried to override the lockdown at the console. He would have leaned in for the retinal scan to prove he was the owner, the master of this universe. And the machine would have beeped red. Access denied. He would try again. Harder. Sweating now. His heart rate spiking, which would make the biometric read even less accurate. The two CEOs would be watching him. The man who preached ruthless efficiency, suddenly unable to open a door on his own boat. Unable to access the data he promised them. I sat in that coffee shop for 2 hours. At 10:45 a.m., I saw the first signs of panic on the deck. Crew members were running around trying to manually override the gangway, but they couldn't without the bridge command, which was locked out by the master protocol I'd initiated. At 11:30 a.m., the fire department arrived on the dock. Someone inside had panicked and pulled an alarm, hoping it would trigger an auto unlock. It didn't. I watched as firefighters with axes and hydraulic spreaders, the jaws of life, had to physically break onto a $100 million yacht. It took them another hour to breach the war room door. When they finally brought Marcus out onto the deck, even from that distance, I could see the change in him. His suit jacket was off. His tie was loosened. His perfect hair was plastered to his forehead with sweat. He looked small. The two CEOs walked off the boat first, shaking their heads. They didn't look like men who had just signed a billion-dollar merger. They looked like men who had just wasted their morning trapped in a metal box with an incompetent fraud. The deal was dead. The news hit the financial blogs within the hour. Tech titan Thorne's yacht disaster scuttles mega merger. His stock price dipped 10% before I finished my second cup of coffee. I closed my tablet. I wiped the screen with a microfiber cloth I kept in my purse. I flew home that afternoon. A week later, the inevitable lawsuit arrived. Marcus's lawyers were suing Maya's Pristine Solutions for negligence, claiming a cleaning error must have short-circuited the security system. They couldn't prove anything. My digital footprints were scrubbed clean. I am very good at my job. The forensic IT team just found a catastrophic cascade of system failures initiated by a corrupted user profile. Eventually, his insurance company settled with him, but the damage was done. His reputation for infallible control was shattered. In his world, once you look weak, the sharks come circling. He lost his board seat 3 months later. I shut down my company shortly after that. I didn't want to serve those people anymore. I took my savings, the money I made being invisible, and I opened a small antique book restoration shop in a quiet town. I still clean things, but now I clean things that have history, things that matter. Sometimes, when I'm delicately removing decades of grime from a beautiful old leather cover, I think of Marcus Thorne trapped in that multi-million-dollar panic room. He called me the cleaning lady. He was right. I cleaned up his mess. And then, I cleaned him out of my life. Never underestimate the people who know where your skeletons are closeted and where your servers are racked. We see everything. This story is a reminder that everyone deserves respect, no matter their job title. If you've ever felt undervalued and wished you could turn the tables, hit that like button. It really helps the channel grow. And if you want more stories about karma coming back around in the most unexpected ways, make sure you subscribe to Revenge Beyond Love and ring that notification bell. You don't want to miss what we have coming next. Thanks for listening.